Hello everybody, thank you so much for coming tonight. I want you to give a very, very warm welcome to Dr. Ciaran O'Keefe and Billy Roberts.
Actually, before we start, I do have one question for you.
Good.
That was, I'm going to start off softly, and then I'll go a bit more hardcore later on. But when you're giving your readings, you're interchanging between astrology, psychic, mediumship. How can you tell the difference?
Well, I can. I mean, I can. Because it's such a short show, and it's not the normal show, is it?
No.
We're sort of exploring different concepts. I thought I'd interject. We didn't plan this, by the way. The intention was for me to endeavour to demonstrate mediumship and do a little bit of the psychological astrology later on, but I decided not to do that because I don't like him to preempt the situation. So I thought he had something up his sleeve, which he probably did have, so I foiled him. Anyway.
So it's as simple as that?
That's it.
Okay. Got a couple of questions here. This is a question for me, I guess, the first one. I felt you were using NLP when you read the card with the wavy lines. Is this true? NLP, for people who don't know, is neuro-linguistic programming. You can find a lot of information about it on the net. And a large part of NLP is to do with reading people in terms of the direction of their eyes when they're telling you something. So if you ask somebody to imagine what their room would be like, if they painted it yellow, then their eyes would move in a particular direction. If you ask them to imagine the colour of their room as it is now, their eyes would move in another direction. Did I use NLP? No. Simple as that. I won't tell you how I did it though. And this is for Billy. How did Billy feel he was right when he didn't get recognition or didn't get connection from the audience, I think that says?
I don't understand that question. When it's wrong, isn't it? And a medium is only as good as the audience they work with. I'm not saying that it's a bad audience, it's a nice audience. But one of the messages I gave, I mean, I try and explain, because usually a show goes on for 2 hours, and I try to explain that if I'm speaking to somebody, it doesn't seem to be for them. If it is for you, put your hand up. And a lady did come to me in the break over certain information I gave to two sisters in the audience. Sometimes it sounds a bit of an excuse really, but sometimes messages can overlap. You know, you can get two kind of messages for one person, for different people rather, when I'm speaking to one person. So I didn't feel it was, well, I know it wasn't a brilliant demonstration. It was, is that what you want me to say?
Well, for you to say it wasn't a brilliant demonstration,
well, it wasn't
suits me. I'm quite happy with that. To say that. But then again, I was listening into that. It's very difficult for me because I can't see people's reactions.
There was no mic in the audience for me.
I apologise for that.
And the other thing is, and I don't mean this, it's an audience with a difference, isn't it? We've got people who are inquiring, people who are very for spiritualism and mediums, and you've got the followers, the devotees of Dr. Ciaran O'Keefe, who are mingled in the audience, who sort of look sideways at you and give discerning glances. I see them, I know them a mile off.
There's a couple, yeah.
But you know, it's a challenge, isn't it? There you go. That's
There was a good question here, unless you want to ask, here's a question for me, which is a tough one. Ciaran, how does your science fit if you have a faith in God? And I think that's a general question because I don't have a faith in God. I was brought up Irish Roman Catholic, but denounced the faith as a teenager. So it's not an issue for me. But it's a good question in terms of this kind of science versus religion. How do you rectify the idea of science, especially when you're talking about something like evolution, and how do you rectify that with creationism, which is the Christian way of looking at things? Very, very difficult. There are scientists, I know a lot of them in North America, who are devout Catholics, Mormons even, a couple of colleagues, but they are scientists, and I find it very difficult how on earth they can rectify the two different ways of looking at the world. And that's what we're talking about for me. The way I look at the world is from a scientist perspective. It's all about science for me.
We've had this discussion before, haven't we, about beliefs and what you believe. And I always say that you've got to believe in something, because the one thing we've got in common is we're all going to die, so you might as well believe in something. But just talking about religion, that was a joke, by the way, tongue-in-cheek. Talking about religion, mediumship doesn't have anything to do with religion, does it? You don't have to believe in a particular religion. Spiritualism does not have the monopoly upon religion. I was born as a medium. I think mediums are born, not made. Everybody has the potential. My mother was a medium, my grandmother was a medium, my aunt was a medium. So it wasn't something I chose to do. But as a child, I was very religious. I was brought up as a Catholic and believed totally in Jesus Christ, if you like. And as Ciaran found himself being led away because of his scientific background, I suppose I was very radical and skeptical about religion. I always remember W.C. Fields reading the Bible on his deathbed, and he was trying to find loopholes, he said, which I thought was funny, and that's the way I feel about mediumship. So I'm a skeptical medium.
It's interesting what you say about you think everybody has the ability, or everybody has the potential. Are you saying everybody has the ability to be psychic or medium? Or?
Potentially. I think that I always say that before our primitive forebears evolved even the most rudimentary form of speech, they communicated their feelings and thoughts telepathically. And Maurice Maeterlinck, who was a 20th century dramatist, a mystic, he said we only evolved speech so that we could tell lies to our wives. Now, whether the latter is true or not, the fact remains that telepathy is a fact. It's a scientific fact, whether Ciaran agrees or not. And mediumship is based on telepathy, albeit one of the minds is discarnate and one incarnate. So it's communication, mind-to-mind communication.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, we don't agree on a lot. Right? And it's going to start to get a little bit passionate and hardcore and finger-pointing at some point. There is one thing that we do agree on, and that is in terms of testing mediums in a lab, in a laboratory. For me as a scientist, watching Billy work, watching Liam work, visiting spiritualist churches, seeing mediums operate one-to-one, there are too many other explanations for what's going on. Perhaps I'll even try a reading, because you said everybody has potential for ability. But there are too many other explanations for what's going on. It's not controlled enough. And so for me, I want mediums to come into the lab, and I'd like to control the environment so that if mediums are successful, if they're accurate in the laboratory, then there's no other explanation for it. But this is where we agree. Even if a medium comes out of my experiment in a laboratory and they are so accurate, there is no other explanation because of all the conditions, you can still only say that you've got evidence of paranormal communication. You can't distinguish between mediumship communication and telepathy, because at the end of the day, if somebody comes up with accurate information, how do you know it's accurate? That information has to be checked by somebody, either the client or the subject in the other room, or they have to ask somebody else. There has to be some verification. And so therefore, if there is such a thing as telepathy, if that process works, we cannot distinguish between telepathy and mediumship. I think that's the only bit that we agree on, is that how can you test a medium in a lab?
I really don't believe that mediumship can be tested in a laboratory. Psychic abilities such as basic telepathy and other psychic abilities can be put under the spotlight, as you have done in Hope. But mediumship is different.